Kai got the new microphone, but it's not going for him.
Why is my mic off? Okay, it shouldn't be off mute now. Okay. It don't say it's on mute. Great way to start off. But yeah, this is the Runnin with WARR show. We're busy trying to okay, y'all unmute yourselves now. You can unmute yourself. Busy trying to find out what 80s robot group we are. And all this, but this is a rare occurrence where we have all 5 of our main contributors on the show tonight. And on top of that, we have a guest as well. We have Ricky O'Donnell coming on at 8. I don't know what we're gonna do then, but we got for now we got all our guys here. You can see Chris Pennant, Gabe Wilkins, Josh Hicks, and Drew Stevens on the board with me. Appreciate all you guys coming in. Pretty, I don't know if it's necessarily momentous show, but pretty busy show as typical. We got quite a bit to talk about the next hour plus. A lot going on, and on pretty much all the sides of stuff that we cover: NBA, WNBA, college. Get into a little bit of all that. I want to shout out, do a couple shout outs first. Definitely want to shout out our friend and collaborator School B. We're giving all our best to him right now. He's mourning the loss of his mother. He was planning on having him on the show in February, but he had to turn his concerns to his situation with his fam, so we couldn't get him on then. But we look to have him on pretty soon. And I just want to shout him out and let him know that our thoughts continue to be with him. And it's a lot. It's a lot that's we talk about something like that's personal, more close to personal for us. And a lot of things that's going on in the world right now that's kind of tripped out and crazy. And we gonna get into a few things that I think sort of mirror the craziness in society over the course of the show. But I want to have us pick us up a little bit too, man. I want to have some good feelings throughout this show and everything. I don't know if any of y'all could help with that, but if you can, feel free to offer any type of good sentiment, something in your life and somebody you know is like something that could help keep us get us some good momentum going into this show.
Yes, sir.
Don't all rush.
You were on the roll, man. So I was a little. I'm sorry. First of all, shout out Rob Manfred for fucking up spring. We love you, my dude. Trying to get an extra $50,000 for all these dudes who don't know how to run a team well.
I told you to be positive, Chris. I'm gonna get into that.
I said shout out. I said shout out.
That's not. Yeah, you shout them out, but you shout them out for some fuckery, man. That's not good.
I mean, obviously, it must be good for baseball since he's the commissioner of Major League Baseball. So shout out Rob Manfred, man. He's just growing the game, doing what's supposed to be done, taking baseball to its logical conclusion of being antiquated and out of touch. So good job.
Well, with that said, then because the tie-in I was going to do to that because of baseball being ruined today, at least the start of it, and maybe it's near future. With Chris being on, he could add. He's already added his personal touch to this, but the tie-in I have with the MLB sort of goes along the lines of what's happening in the WNBA right now to an issue that they have that is tied into their collective bargaining, but it's sort of it's to me it seems sort of very petty in a way, and it's very much reflective of just the way that the working class really is taken advantage of by the ruling class in every sense. I think that's something that Chris could agree with. It's really, when you look at what's happened in the what happens, really throughout most of the history of the WNBA, and the way that those players are undervalued and taken advantage of, and not very well taken care of. For this situation to come across now, where the ownership of the New York Liberty is being taken to task, his franchise being taken to task for offering charter flights for their team, something that is not offered to any team in the WNBA, is really ridiculous to me. But that's something I wanted to, I guess, we say tie that into the ongoing issue with MLB, which, because of their mess, the way that they're ruining, the way that they're mishandling everything, the league is, it's really engendering more support day to day, day by day to the players. And, it was a lockout to begin with. Like I say, Manfred put this on in December, and it was, maybe it was supposed to be some tactic to try to engender, a sense of urgency at the bargaining table. It hasn't worked. It's led to now games being officially missed, and the game is going to be set back towards it. We've talked in recent, within the past year, about possibilities of, similar type of a lockout or strike happening in the WNBA. But like I said before, Chris can explain better than me the situation again with the airplanes, the charter flights. Let us know about this situation, and if you want to tie it into any sort of general struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, feel free.
You know me by now, huh? Man, this is a really interesting story, and it deserved. First off, let's say it deserved the front page of Sports Illustrated. With that, shout out to whoever did that graphic, going back to the airplane cover of the movie. But back in the pandemic, I believe. No, sorry, it was last year. In 2021, the New York Liberty, the owner Joe and Clarence Tsai, and Joe Tsai is one of the co-founders of Alibaba, one of the biggest internet companies in the world. When they purchased the Liberty, they were buying another CBA that was renegotiated a couple of years back, but there was still no room for charter flights. So everybody knows that there's been an issue with travel. Las Vegas and Connecticut had to cancel the game because they were going to have to do 2 or 3 layovers when they were already flying coach. And this is basketball, so even in women's basketball, there's a majority of players who are 6'1", 6'2", and we don't fly our parents' airplanes, so we're not getting any leg room. So Joe Tsai decided that the New York Liberty were going to charter flights for their team. They kept it on the hush, as Howard Megdal reported in that Sports Illustrated story. Howard, my former boss at the Next. And they tried to keep it on the hush, but other front office managers or other front office personnel noticed that timelines didn't match up if they were flying the same airlines everybody else was. And so people sent word to the league office, and I think they chartered at least 12 flights. In the story, they talk about going to Napa Valley in California for a team outing, which is so funny thinking about that 2008 Celtics team that deliberately went on a group trip overseas that Ubuntu trip, that famous Ubuntu trip for Team Unity, the Liberty pretty much did the same thing. However, since there was no allowances for this in the collective bargaining agreement, the league basically said, I mean, it was going to be crazier at first. There was talks about terminating the franchise. Think about that. Compare that to like the Blackhawks, who are one of the original 6 members of the National Hockey League. I know the timelines don't match up, but the Blackhawks and the scandal that they are already embroiled in, that is so sinister and disgusting. I don't think there's been any discussion of even giving the Blackhawks, suspending them from play. But because the New York Liberty organization chartered flights for their team, there was talks of taking away, quote, every draft pick you have ever seen, possibly terminating the franchise, one of the original founding franchises of the league. And ultimately, it came down to $1 million fine, which was reduced to $500,000 on appeal. Team salary, that's about 45% of the current salary cap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is Joe Tsai. He can afford it because he can already afford to charter flights. But it's brought back this whole issue of a very simple thing that players and fans and some owners have been clamoring for. And it also, Howard made a good point in the article. There's a divide between the owners of teams from kind of the before, say, 2010, I would say before Brittany Griner came in, and then owners who have come in recently, like Joe, like Mark Davis for the Las Vegas Aces, like Larry Gottesdiener, who bought the franchise in Atlanta after the former senator was vacated from that post. So those owners are willing to put money in, and the former owners, some of which are still comprise NBA teams, are not as willing to. They want to write these teams off as a loss or park assets there as like a tax write-off.
Yeah.
So there's a definite struggle for what the league is. It's kind of a struggle for the soul of the league, and I know that sounds a little exaggerated, but it seems to be where things are going. The CBA doesn't expire until 2027. So even though I can tell that players and the Players Association is veering towards that, especially because even though they have all these allowances, there's the salary cap, which still has super maxes at $225,000. There's no allowances for charter flights and a lot of other amenities that the players think they should get. It's difficult for them to stomach. Plus, the National Women's Soccer League and women's soccer in general just got the Equal Pay instituted a couple of weeks ago, and the NWSL signed a new CBA and did another capital investment raise, just like the WNBA has, but for more money. So Trinity Rodman, who plays for the
Washington team, right?
There's the Washington team. That's what I thought.
She's getting
1.1 over 4 years. That is about $230,000 if my math is right, and that's higher than anybody's salary in the WNBA right now. Mm-hmm. Never mind the veterans like Sue Bird, who took the veterans minimum for $72K this year, and she just finished her first season. So amidst all of this stuff around, the WNBA has a lot of questions to answer, which is frankly surprising considering the direction the league looks like it's been headed. I thought things might come gradually, but I think this is going to jumpstart a lot of change.
And it looks like they need it, man, because the numbers are there. We talk about supermaxes being $220,000, and in the NBA they're like $220 million. It's like that doesn't work, man. And issues like this where, like I say, you can't even be reasonably accommodated on airplane flights. These are players who work their asses off to compete and entertain across the country, and they play year in, year out, across the. That's another thing too that we could tie into current events. There are players right now who are trying to evade what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, escaping Russia in particular. Because they have to play, and they didn't foresee when they entered this most recent season that they would be in the middle of a war zone, midway through their season. So this is the type of stuff that, women's athletes, women's basketball players have to deal with on a regular, like just second class citizenry. And, something has to give with this stuff, man. And it may take collective action from these players. And, I'm all for whatever they want to do. Just like, though the Baseball Players Association, most people, like I say, they're gaining support day by day because we see how intractable the Major League Baseball is. That the owners, the organization of those owners, so it leads you to naturally feel that these players are being it more and more reveals itself each day that the players are being taken advantage of and that they're not being dealt with in a civilized way by the owners. And as bad as that is, it's like tenfold in the WNBA.
The wild thing is that not all the owners feel this way. After the story became public, reportedly, according to the story, Joe Tsai offered a plan, and the Liberty offered a plan that everybody could have charter flights for 3 years. He said he was speaking to airlines, and it was good. This is according to the story, and Howard's a quality writer who knows how to write, which means he got verifiable sources. Word has since come back from the league office that there was no proposal ever put forward and that they were just looking into it. But in the story, he says that they put the plan to the league and the rest of the owners. A few owners didn't want it because they thought that after the program ended after 3 years, there would be more of an outcry from players missing it. And then some thought, well, we could just have another salary hike and make things okay. And you're right, Kyle, it wouldn't be okay. These are athletes who we've created this world that demands athletes be put on television, that television generates tons of revenue for their leagues, for the networks, for the sponsors, the advertisers, whomever. If you're looking at college, the athletic directors, the universities, and for the professional leagues like the WNBA, the teams, and the league itself, and by extension, the NBA. So if you're saying that you can do this, you've reached the pinnacle of your sport, we're going to give you this much, we're going to keep raising the money for you, but every single time you fly from Las Vegas to Connecticut, not New York, Connecticut, you got to use United with those 28 inches of leg room, there's a problem.
Yeah, the message it sends, man, like it's just, I know, it was collectively bargained, and I know that the owners of these teams in WNBA are all coming from different perspectives. They're in it for different reasons as well, apparently. But the bottom line is the Liberty were fined for trying to placate their players, for trying to accommodate their players, to trying to put them in a position where all they have to worry about is playing ball. They don't have to worry about, catching flights, as you said, Chris, with accommodations that only give them 28 inches of leg room. Like that's pitiful. And I don't know if this story will do anything before the CBA comes up. Maybe the two sides can try to figure out a way to, maybe they can tear it up jointly and come to some other agreement. But I don't know if the owners will really be into that. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line. But just the message that comes across in this story that came out today is just, it's pitiful, man. And I know, Chris, I know you and guys like James K, you all already knew a lot, if not all of what's going on in terms of what the WNBA gives and what they don't give to their players. But the attention that it's going to get now, man, I just want to see the aftermath of what's going to happen.
And it should get attention. It should get attention because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but like with the new CBA or the current CBA that the WNBA has, didn't they just make it a requirement for like the first time a couple of years ago where like players can have their own hotel rooms, like individually,
Yes.
because they were like
they don't have to bunk up.
They were bunkering up like it was college. And I remember Candace Parker and Sue Bird talking about that on Interrupted, and it's like you got professional players bunkering up with one another like this is college, and they playing in the highest, profession in women's basketball. It's like, what type of message is that seeing? And I think, I'm all with the player standing up against it, even though, the deal is agreed upon. I don't know if it's an opt-out or whatever, but it's definitely going to bring some attention to it, and it should bring some attention to the CBA. And if the players want to fight for it, I'm all for it. However, who is in a position of power, rather, that's going to be able to help these players get what they need? Because like you said, every owner is in Joe Tsai, and Joe Tsai also has the Brooklyn Nets. And, we know that he's a big time entrepreneur and so forth like that. And kudos to him for doing what he did for his players to try and make life easier on them in their travels. But it's like, it's a shame that you even have owners that are on the other side of the spectrum, because it's like, at the end of the day, whether you're keeping your business in the aspiration to maintain profit or just for a tax write-off, you got to take care of these players. Like, it's no way that they should be able to not go, or that they should have to go to like a Russia or somewhere overseas just to keep making money. And it's like, with these max deals, just paying attention to the contract extension that Asia Wilson signed, I was really shocked by that. I was like, you mean to tell me a top player of her caliber is making that much in just the W alone? It's like, I understand it's going to be a little bit of a pay gap between men and women. And I understand that the WNBA is 25 years old going into its 26th season. But it's like, at some point, you got to figure out a way to grow this game.
It's going to be key, though. Is like, Chris may mention this, that, and it's written about in the SI stories as well. The league, the way it started out, it was basically just a piggyback off the NBA. And, so many of the teams were extensions of the NBA franchises, and they were looked at as loss leaders or write-offs or whatever. And, they were just sort of distractions for these larger franchises. And, whatever. They were just something that they used to market themselves in a different way to a different audience of sports fans that they wanted to grow. And now, what you have now, you have more of a new generation of owners who, see, hopefully they see, like this owner in New York, they see women's sports and these franchises as true investments that they have passion about. And when you do that, you're more likely to put money and resources into your franchise, and that's going to lead to them doing things that leads to winning and leads to them drawing better athletes to their clubs and everything. It seemed to me, I'm not sure if this is the case, but it seemed to me that the reasoning in a lot of ways for the initial rules in the CBA regarding charter flights is that, well, you don't want one or two franchises who may be rich enough to have these things sort of lord it over the other 20 or so franchises and create that sort of disparity that's there. Where, if, the Indiana franchise, for say, they can't afford charters, but New York can and Connecticut can and stuff like that. But that's just life, that's what it is. If you got to step up. If you're an owner in the WNBA and you can't, it gets to a point where you're one of two or three or four franchises that ain't having charter flights because you can't or don't want to up the money for it. Maybe you need to put the sticks down and sell your franchise to someone who is more willing to put money into it and be competitive. So that's the natural type of evolution that has to occur with franchises and with sports organizations in general. That's what happened. We look at organizations, the NBA, the NFL, the organizations that are here and aren't going anywhere, they support each other in a lot of ways, in sort of a a socialistic socialism sort of way, especially the NFL. NFL, you could be a whack owner for generations. We know that here in Chicago. You could be a whack family owned franchise for generations, but you still getting $100 million every year off TV. It don't matter what you do, you're getting that money every year, because that's how the NFL has allowed itself to become the biggest cartel in sports in America, at least. And you can look at other organizations too in Europe. The Premier League, the best run organizations are all run like that. Meanwhile, in the WNBA, it's survival of the fittest. And this, when we see survival of the fittest, capitalism at its truest, most pure, this is the type of stuff that you get, that we read about in Sports Illustrated today.
It's definitely true. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no, I was saying, yes, completely true. I mean, in my inner Stephen A, this is blasphemous. How can you treat women less than their worth for the most part? Like, it kind of baffles me how, especially in situations like this, especially you would think the NBA, as the so-called, we talk about how the NBA is like the big brother to the WNBA, you could have utilized those services to help make this type of stuff a reality too. Gabe talked about expanding the game. Figuring out ways to expand the game. The NBA maybe has to be that much more involved within the representation that they have and the power that they have. Because you want to talk about people that have power. LeBron James has power. He supports WNBA. At one point in time, if Kobe was still alive, I could only imagine Kobe would be in this type of conversations, assisting with those type of things. Chris Paul, and things that sort. They all work and support the WNBA in these different realms, and they actually helped even some of them WNBA representation and ownership be represented in the WNBA. Why can't they utilize those same forces to help create better lifestyles for these women athletes that should be paid more than what they're being viewed as right now, especially when it comes to simple accommodations in regarding the overall health of an athlete? That should be common sense, and I would think that the NBA would potentially take this opportunity like they do every other opportunity when it comes to those against that are disadvantaged and minority issues. They should be able to take those same steps and apply it to this situation with the WNBA. And yeah, I don't know if there's an opt-out clause. I don't know if there's some type of way where you can renegotiate certain terms in the CBA. But if there is, this should be one of those things that should be changed or at least negotiated again. And the NBA should be at the forefront of this to me. They should be able to help out because they have more of the resources to help expand those type of experiences, especially when you have players that even themselves take their own charter flights to different games away from the team itself. Like those are things that are happening in the NBA that should be maybe not fully allowed in the WNBA, but at least should be up to par when it comes to taking care of the overall athlete of what an athlete goes through on a daily basis.
I get what Josh is saying. However, I feel like the NBA looks at the WNBA as like an umbrella brand. No different than like when Adidas owned Reebok. They didn't really invest in Reebok. No, they stopped investing at one point in time after Reebok had fell off. And then they started moving guys that were a part of Reebok basketball into Adidas house, such as John Wall and stuff like that. But they promoted them as their athletes when really they were Reebok athletes. That's the same thing with like the NBA to WNBA. Like it's getting to a point where I can care less if a guy's coming to an NBA game in a WNBA hoodie at this point. That shouldn't even matter. Like at this point, what are you doing to allocate resources and opportunities? And I think it falls not just on the NBA, but for people that are purveyors and admirers and lovers of women basketball. It has to become a roundtable discussion, not only just amongst the women athletes that are participating in basketball and other sports, but it also has to be a discussion in men's roundtable discussions as well, when we talk about sports and ask ourselves, well, how can we help, especially the power players that have the money in the room. To me, that's the only way you're gonna really be able to get the change done. I understand that it's a capitalistic society, but at the same time, money make the world go round. And you know, that's the only way that you're gonna be able to create these changes. And if it's somebody that wants to acquire an ownership stake in a franchise that's significant and not just a minority stake, then they should look into the WNBA. Because to me, if you really want to grow the game or help do something that's really innovative, this right now is looking like the place to be, because you got so much going on the floor, off the floor, people getting paid, underpaid, and stuff like that. Like that's really what it's going to have to come down to. And these next 25 years for the WNBA are going to be extremely key. You know, granted, the NBA wasn't where it is now at 25 years old, but they're going to have to seek to expedite this process.
And I understand the comparisons that are made between the WNBA and the NBA, but I think the changes are going to have to be expedited. You can't wait, and you can't have the same sort of evolution occur from a league that was born in the 1950s to one that was born in the 1990s. That it has to speed up. There has to be some sort of speeding up there, and I think. Gabe, you definitely right. The next 25 years are going to be key. I think this next year is key. And, we're going to keep an eye on things definitely on this show. And Chris, I'm sure, is going to keep an eye on things with, his shows with James and everything. So, I'm glad we were able to tee off a little bit on this one. I think we got to move about a little bit. We got Ricky O'Donnell coming on pretty soon. And, I want to, like I say, move it to a couple more, note segments before we get into, talking about these Bulls and talking about some of the main storylines going on right now in the NBA. But definitely, we're going to talk more about the WNBA as we get close to the regular season and, talking about it on the court, as well as some of these things that are occurring off the court. But in the world of women's basketball, there is a positive storyline that I'm and it should have been brought up by our brother Joshua M. Hicks, because he is covering he's covering this story. But Anissa Morrow,
yeah,
is killing it over there for those DePaul Blue Demons, who are looking to be heading to another NCAA women's tournament and everything. Of course, we know the great success of that program in general under Doug Bruno. But this is a Chicago kid here, Morrow, Simeon product, and today was announced that she won Freshman of the Week for the 5th National Freshman of the Week award for the 5th time this year by the United States Basketball Writers Association. And I remember when they announced her winning it last week, Josh, for the 4th time, you was just like, they need to just give her the award already. And I would imagine that would be the case, with her winning it for a 5th time now, man. But, this is something that, this was popped up throughout the year. And I'm, from your vantage point as a sports editor over there at DePaul, covering everything, what's it been like looking at this girl really explode on the national scene?
Historical. That's the word that's going around campus, man. This has been honestly a historical season for DePaul. When you think about what Anissa Morrow brought to the table this year, she ended her last game 41-18, averaging a triple-double. Averaging a double-double all season long. That's unheard of and never been done in Big East play, let alone the country as a whole and NCAA. So she's already put up historical numbers. Coach Bruno just got elected to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, so that's a historic moment for that program as well. And I think it just came up today on Twitter, literally for the show. We know DePaul women's basketball knows how to fill up the basket. They literally scored 1,767 points this year, which is the highest in Big East history. So you're talking about 1,700 points this season behind the guard play that they have of Lexi Held and Sonya Morris, who Coach Bruno told me personally is the baddest backcourt he's ever coached in the DePaul women's basketball program history. Combined with Anissa Morrow, who is the dominant freshman of that, brings so many different levels to his team offensively and defensively. And Bruno West said that's like the missing piece to getting this team over the next hump. This is the season where you really have to see how far this team really can go come the postseason. Yes, they've had some ups and downs, especially the late as they go through this last stretch. But they're determined to win this thing. Sonya, they have UConn circled on their calendar because they want to win the Big East tournament against UConn and use that as a stepping stone to get to that to advance in the NCAA tournament.
Are they facing them before the tournament?
Most likely in the Big East. They play Marquette. I want to say Wednesday they play Marquette, and based on how that game goes, they'll probably play UConn. But you're talking about 2 times they played UConn this year. The first time you lost only twice. You lost by 2 points, pretty much almost at buzzer-beating fashion on your home floor. And then you come to UConn and get annihilated without 3 of their best players. That's something that hurts them a little bit. And they got that target on UConn's back. And especially that last game with Sonya Morris, who's the one that told me, I want to win the Big East tournament over UConn, and it wouldn't be as satisfying if it wasn't against UConn. She's been out for most of the last stretch of the season due to ankle injuries, and she wasn't even playing in the last UConn game. So there's a lot of motivation for this DePaul women's team as they're heading into the tournament this week to pretty much seal the deal and do it in a fashion that is like the icing on the cake to already a historical season when you talk about what Anissa Morrow has been putting up, along with the dynamic backcourt and scoring style of play that they have. When you talk about how they've been able to fill the basket up all year long, they've had at least 10 plus games where they scored over 100 points, which has never been done before. So, talking about history, that's how the terminology is being defined here on campus and within the city of Chicago for this program.
That's really dope. That's really dope that she's come on and made that type of impact there. And that's the type of thing that DePaul needs. That's the type of thing that it looks like they've been trying to have with the men's side. And I want to shout out though, right quick. They got like a real high profile kid, a 4-star kid named Zion Cruz this week, who was playing at the Donda Academy. I wonder if he's going to be on Donda too. But he played for the Donda Academy school that Kanye started, and they just recently played here a couple weeks ago at UIC Pavilion. So maybe that was helped him make his decision. The California kid make his decision to want to come out to Chicago and play. So that's the men's side. You get to watch them a lot because they play a lot in the Big East on Fox and everything. And I always say they play about half their games don't need to be broadcast, but they got to because of the Big East contract. But it's a good thing for them. It's something that they should take advantage of. But they've played competitively this year, and I know Josh, you've spoken well of Tony Stubblefield, and it does seem that they are playing better under him definitely than they did under Leto, and that's sort of faint praise, but there's improvement that's being made in that program. So shout out to DePaul. I want to shout out too right quick because we're gonna do a little bit more college talk with Ricky O'Donnell, who is definitely more up on all this than all of us, save maybe Gabriel. But the big time schools. This is a crazy week for the big time schools. Like Saturday, they had 7 of the top 10 teams lost in the country. The top 6, all the top 6 teams lost. in one day on Saturday, which never happened before. So a lot of crazy stuff coming up. We're in March officially now. Tournament is less than 2 weeks away. So this is we getting that madness going in. Like I say, that's the title of the show today. Mad as hell. That's for multiple reasons. Like I said, we haven't gotten to the Bulls yet, but that's part of that too. But yeah, I say shout out to Paul, and I want to shout out Chicago State. They got a big win over the weekend against New Mexico State, which I think came into the game like 23 wins. They went down to 95th Street and got upset down there. So, and I remember I saw the highlights of the last second win on I forgot what newscast, but that stadium down there, and that they didn't have much of a crowd down there, but with that facility down there and that the history of the school, that they deserve so much more. And it would be great if Chicago State could come up for at least for a little bit, and I don't know how long they're gonna be in the WAC conference, but you don't want to be in the WAC conference. You don't want to be in the WAC. UIC has shown the way. I think maybe they could get into the horizon now that UIC is leaving there, even though I hated how the horizon did UIC. But UIC moving up to the valley, maybe Chicago State could move up too. Because like I said, they got a great stadium. They can get players down. If you a school in Chicago, you should be able to get players on some level. And they had a nice little March moment for themselves over the weekend. Chicago State did. But guys, we'll see. I don't know, man. Like I said, Ricky's coming up. Anything else that's been going on with y'all that's come to that like I say it's been on your mind, and just been of interest to you as of late as we sort of transition to this next hour?
I'm glad y'all brought up Lisa Morrow. I'm just glad y'all brought her up because she deserves it.
Yeah.
I mean, because she came in as a freshman, but I don't think a lot of people really gave her enough fanfare or really knew how good she was. And to me, she's probably been the best player at DePaul since Keisha Hampton, when I was a freshman up there 10 years ago, who made it to the WNBA. And that's the last All-American, if I'm not mistaken, that DePaul has had. And I'd be pretty shocked if she doesn't win National Freshman of the Year. And I know like every week I'm on Twitter and I'm looking at DePaul Athletics and they're saying like every single week she's winning Big East Freshman of the Week. And it's like she deserves the credit. And I hope Bruno gets that run that he deserves with a player like that. Because Bruno's done everything. He's won Big East championships, won gold medals. He's never been to a Final Four, though. That would be real cool to see, or even an Elite Eight. That to me is like their next step as a program.
Yeah, I was going to say, Anissa Morrow's been lighting it on fire. Like, there's a few people I know from Follow the Sky. Big ups to Robo Coco on Twitter. But she's been in love with Anissa Morrow. People are so excited to go watch her play. And you're right, Gabe. Every time I go in there thinking about the history of DePaul basketball throughout the program, the men's team's last big time moment was when they had Aguirre in the 80s. And then you could go to the Bobby Simmons era, but they didn't make it as far. And all those years, all those wins, all those players who have come out of DePaul women's basketball, they have those 2 Sweet 16 banners at Wintrust. Haven't made the Elite Eight, haven't made the Final Four. And they're not even ranked this season. And I think this is big. Kyle, you brought it up. Josh, you brought it up that DePaul wants to beat UConn. This is the first time UConn's back in the Big East for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And that has been the team on the mountaintop of women's college basketball pretty much since the late 2000s. When Tennessee really started kind of sliding down after Coach Summit passed away, it's been UConn with splashes from Stanford, Baylor, and now South Carolina. Really now South Carolina's taken that spot. But UConn is still the one that people, if you talk to some random dude on the street, they're like, oh yeah, is UConn playing? So this is huge for them. And consider that in that loss, they lost by 24 at UConn, had 2 double-figure scorers, and Anissa Morrow had 20 and 16. But Josh, you're right. Paige Buchers wasn't playing. Azzi Fudd only had 4 points. So all of that, they lost to a UConn squad that didn't have their best players and didn't have one of their most notable freshmen having an on game. So it's clear. It's kind of like when Lovie Smith came in and he said, we're going to do these things in this order. We're going to beat Green Bay. We're going to win the division. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. That first big step for them is win the Big East over UConn. Then you matriculate. Then you set things up. And then you put DePaul on the national stage. Because like people understand that they're a good program, but they're not at the level of Stanford or Baylor or South Carolina or UConn, or even say Iowa with Caitlin Clark, NC State in the ACC. These are all teams that are getting better players year in and year out. So Anissa Morrow is really, really, really key for them to have, because then you draw recruits in, but they have to win. They have to show they can win when the time comes.
Yeah, completely agree with all of you guys. And just I'm gonna do like a quick 2-part. The first part, continuing with DePaul and what's going on on the men's side. Kyle, they've been much more competitive this year. Tony Stubblefield has been known for his recruiting, to be able to recruit top talent. Even the point guard over there now, Jalen Terry, was a Tony Stubblefield recruit at Oregon that transferred with them over here. So DePaul is slowly but surely going to get better on the men's side, and depending on Javon Freeman Liberty's status for next season, I think he has an extra year of eligibility due to COVID.
We're going to be 27 next year?
I don't know. I mean,
No, I'm just messing with it.
I mean, hey, we had Brandon Johnson. He's 24, 25, getting that second degree. So, hey, it could be possible. But
hey, take advantage of it, yeah.
Exactly. And if he was to come back alongside with a growing Jalen Terry, and not to mention they had 2 players that didn't play this year, and Bynum and I forgot the other kid that's new on the team. And from what I've heard, those 2 are actually the better players out of that whole roster that you pair with Javon. So you're talking about bringing all of your talent back for next year. If you're able to pull that off on top of getting this new recruit, DePaul might slowly but surely make slow improvements over time next year, where they might actually make a little noise, especially since this year they've been pretty competitive, and a lot of their games that they've lost, they've had halftime leads. They struggle with putting together a 40-minute game, which is what Stubblefield talks about all the time. Yeah. And finding that main second option when Javon wasn't playing. Once you figure out those components, that DePaul can be a scary team that slowly but surely will get on the rise, especially if Tony Stubblefield continues in this upward trajectory along with the recruiting. But switching over, I think we should highlight UIC a little bit real quick, because UIC, you talked about how Kyle.
You were just over there, right, for a game.
So what?
You were just over there for a game, right?
Yeah, I was covering them the second half of the season. So Coach Luke Yaklick is, even though it's his second year, he's emphasized getting Chicago talent back. He's emphasized, looking to get the best talent to help create the family culture that UIC needs to implement, that he wants UIC to implement. One of the ways he's done that was recruiting players from Chicago and helping them come back home. And that has been a constant theme this season that could actually be a trend moving forward, because oftentimes we see a lot of the kids now going to bigger schools outside, they're not staying home in the city. But if things don't work out, they're going to look at probably coming back home, especially talking about getting more playing time, playing in front of their families, and things of that sort, which is something that you miss depending on what school you go to and how far they are away from home. So with this transition, especially from a conference perspective, going to I think it's the Missouri Valley. I think it's the Missouri Valley Conference they're transitioning.
Yeah, Missouri Valley. Yeah.
That's gonna help put USC on a bigger scale. That over time you start seeing Chicago talent maybe taking a notice at that, especially since the current way the roster is currently constructed now. It's full of Chicago homegrown talents that went away but came back home. I think that's going to be a big component that's going to help with the program, especially since now you got D. Brown over there as your assistant coach. That's going to help them out a lot too with the Chicago talent and the Chicago recruiting. So I think they're poising themselves for potentially an elevation within the program, especially with this transfer or transitioning of the conferences. So we'll see how that goes, but there's something to be on the lookout for this year too, for upcoming years to come.
Well, look, I think Ricky's gonna flake on us because he out here tweeting about the Wisconsin-Purdue game, and he ain't answering my messages now. So he cool, but I think he flaking on us this time. But we gonna wrap up the college stuff for now, real quick though. I'm gonna shout. We talked, we mentioned the Missouri Valley. I keep track of that because I come from that conference. Me and Drew, SIU. Chris represents with Bradley and everything. So that's coming up. Arch Madness this week. That was a real dope game. Loyola really came through and it's kind of sad because they really dominated the conference for while they've been there. They were trying to win. They went head up with Northern Iowa on Saturday for the conference, the regular season conference championship. If they would have won Loyola, it would have been their fourth time winning it in 5 years. So, they wound up not winning. They, Northern Iowa held them off in overtime. It was a really nice game, but they're in a position though. Some people are saying that they may have to win the conference championship in the tournament this weekend to get into the NCAA, which would be unfortunate if they don't make it. I say we can't really judge anything with Ricky is on board with us, so I'm gonna get him on in a second here. But let me do my quick spiel on the Valley. It would be unfortunate if they didn't make it. Maybe Ricky could follow up on this too, but in Valentine's first year, it wouldn't be an indictment or anything. I just think it'd be unfortunate. But and it'll be unfortunate too for the local scene, I think, because then we'll be reduced to just Illinois probably rooting in the tournament. And I love Illinois, but we can never rely on the Illini when it comes to the tournament. So I would like to see at least another team locally make the tournament. And I guess that's it for the Valley. Like I said, the 4 out of 5 years, they really dominated. Loyola has. They're moving to the Atlantic 10, and they're doing what they're doing. Like we said, it's been this sort of Uncle Chairs thing with Uncle C, and they're looking for bigger money, bigger payouts, more prestige. As is their right. They're a team that's been to the Final Four and the Sweet 16 in the same graduating class. Lucas Williamson has played in both of those things. How many local players can say that? Who have graduated within the past 4 years. So that's what's up with Loyola. But let me bring in Ricky O'Donnell from as we get the Brady Bunch set up here. SB Nation's on. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
What's up, Ricky?
I hate to pull you away from the Purdue Wisconsin game, but are you keeping up with it?
Yeah, I got it on. We're all good.
Okay. But yeah, I was just we said we wanted to get some college insight from you. You wrote a nice piece over the weekend about the top teams losing. They're coming off of that crazy Saturday that happened where 7 of the top 10 lost in one day and all the top 6 lost. And if you want to just give your thoughts on that, the way that you framed your story was, you sort of seeking out weaknesses in all those top teams. So, what do you think about the landscape right now? And is it a wide open thing right now as we look towards the tournament? Who really who's really looking like they're ready for the tournament, and who's looking like maybe they're up there, high up there, but they're maybe pretenders?
Yeah, the first thing I always ask myself every year going into March Madness is, are the good teams actually good? This year, I think they are. I think there's a pretty big separation between the teams that are going to be in the top 2 seeds, maybe top 3 seeds compared to the rest of the country. But that's why what happened Saturday was so surprising, because the top 6 teams lost. Texas Tech lost as well. They're a consensus top 10 team. So I think it shows that, like, this year is wide open in a sense, because I don't think there's a true powerhouse the way Gonzaga was last year. They entered the tournament undefeated last year. You also had a Baylor team who, don't forget, would have got a number 1 seed the pandemic year if the pandemic didn't cancel that tournament. So you had like a very veteran Baylor team with like 2 super sick guards, or 3 great guards actually, that had played together 2 years in a row, had a track record of being an elite team over multiple seasons. And then a Gonzaga team last year that I thought was like one of the best college teams I had ever seen. Of course, they got exposed in the national title game, and Baylor proved to be the better team. But I don't feel like any team this year is on the level of those 2 squads last year. With that being said, though, I would expect a top 2 seed, honestly, to win the tournament. We'll see if that prediction ends up being right or wrong, but that's just kind of my perception of the top teams versus the rest of the field this year.
What do you think about
I think you're muted, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm muted. I'm muted when I'm not. No. Okay. Anyway, given what the fallout of what we got from the weekend, Gonzaga stays on top despite losing the same area. There was some, I get some of the louder people online would be Duke fans. Duke went up to Syracuse and blew them out, but that was to be expected because Syracuse isn't very good. But do you think Duke has an argument to be number 1, given that they were the only top team to survive over the weekend, at least for now? Not like I say, a lot can change over the next week, but right now, do you think they have an argument?
I'm like less concerned about the seeds, because Duke's going to be a 1 seed or a 2 seed. The real question is, like, can they win it all? I think no doubt. I think Duke is absolutely loaded. This is like my favorite type of Duke team, where it's just stacked with future NBA guys. And from my perspective, like, I kind of appreciate it. Like, being able to view so many high-level prospects while watching one game. Paolo Banchero is arguably the number 1 pick. He'll be, a lock for a top 3 pick this year. I think he's awesome. 6'10", 250. Very much has like how about if Jabari Parker never got injured type of game, like Jabari pre-2 ACL tears. Just like powerful and skilled. Not a super duper explosive athlete. Not a great leaper around the rim. A little slow footed. But offensively, I think his scoring package is extremely awesome. And in high school, he had this reputation as a great passer. That hasn't really shown itself at the college level at Duke. It does feel like he holds the ball a little bit and sometimes becomes a bit of a ball hog. You'd like to see him pass a little bit more. But I think he's getting better on that end. And he made so many dope passes in college that I feel like, maybe this is just like his role on the team. He's supposed to be a scorer. He's not supposed to be someone who is, looking to get others involved before looking to get himself involved. So I really like Paolo. They also have AJ Griffin, Adrian Griffin's kid, who is an 8-year-old who looks like he's about 31, I would say. Like, this dude is just jacked as hell, great frame, and an elite shooter. He's like, let's say 6'6", 225, and knockdown shooter. I mean, really, really good. I think he's a top 5 pick. Some NBA GMs view him more as like a back end of the lottery guy. I love AJ Griffin. I've been a fan of his for a long time. He's really fun to watch. He also had a lot of knee injuries in high school, like missed multiple seasons due to knee injuries. So he's still sort of getting healthy, and like he hasn't played much basketball, honestly, like in his life, because he had a couple high school seasons compromised by injury and then the pandemic. So I think he's awesome. Trevor Keels is awesome. Mark Williams is like a center who's 7 foot with a 7'7" wingspan, super long, super bouncy. So I think this Duke team is loaded. I think they can absolutely win the title. Am I going to pick them to win the title? I don't know. I haven't really decided yet. One of my favorite things about the NCAA tournament is the day Duke loses and everyone sort of communally celebrates Duke going down. And if we don't get that in Coach K's last year, I'm going to feel robbed. Like I love Mercer busting out dance moves when they upset Duke, or
Lehigh win
down Lehigh.
I remember that.
You're so right about that, though. Those are the best. That's one of the best days of the year with Duke losing the tournament.
I have a comparison for it. I'm not going to say it, but it's a little risky. But it is one of my favorite. It's like sports Christmas, when Duke loses in the tournament. So I don't know. Like I would like to see Duke like go to the Final Four, honestly, just because if you're going to watch these games late into the tournament, like you want the best teams and the best players playing. So I would like to see Duke go on a long run. But if they get upset by some mid-major, it will be hilarious. Coach K will go out with an L, and that's kind of a good scenario too. So sort of a win-win for the fan coming into this.
It would be representative of his last 20 years, kind of, if that was to happen, unfortunately.
What do you think, Gabe? I mean, his last year, you want him going out with a dub?
I understand the hate for Duke. I've always gotten it. I've been watching a lot of the tournament documentary on the ACC network where they were talking about that with the 91-92 team, and that's how it started. So I get it. But then Coach K has Chicago roots, and being a Southside guy, I mean, I always would watch a lot of his teams as a kid. And like you said, Paolo Banchero, is a top 3 pick bona fide. And in my opinion, he should be the number 1 pick. I see the Jabari comparison. I can also see the Carmelo comparison. He is the real deal. And I think that team does need him to be a bucket getter, particularly in late game situations. But overall, I like the talent on Duke's roster. I think that Duke does have a shot at winning the national championship, as well as another school like Arizona. What Tommy Lloyd has done in his first season there has been impressive. To come from Gonzaga and then lead the Wildcats back to national prominence in the top, the AP top 25 poll. I think that says a lot, especially in the wake of everything that happened during the latter part of the Sean Miller era that started with so much promise. And I've always been a big fan of their program as well. So, if they could get there, that would be a big deal because they haven't been to a Final Four since 2001, like when Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson were there. So, and Michael Wright, who was a Chicago guy, rest in peace. So that would be real cool to see too.
Yeah, I think Arizona's awesome. So I have a question for Chris here. So Arizona plays basically 2 centers with Tabelis and Christian Koloko. Koloko could be a first-round pick. He's just like sort of similar to Mark Williams, like a Daniel Gafford type of center, like a rim runner, rim protector type. Like Chris watches a lot of ball, men's and women's at all levels. Like, how many teams do you see these days starting 2 centers? I feel like it's a pretty unique look. And they basically just try to pound the ball inside, and they got like 2 shooters, but the Twin Towers look, you don't get it much anymore.
No, I think it was, you might have gotten it up until in college ball, I think probably the 80s, 90s, and some of the 2000s. I'm really trying to think, but ever since Villanova was running 4 guards around Daniel Ochefu,
there you go.
It's like, people are, there's so much talk about 5 out. Everybody plays 5 out now. And I mean, Gonzaga had Drew, I can't think of his last name.
Drew Timme.
Yes. And they've always run really with, I think, centers. As long as Gonzaga's been good, they've had quality centers along with a quality backcourt or a wing player. But having 2 big guys is so, maybe with my man that they had at Arizona, the Lithuanian cat, when they still had Lauri Markkanen, because they were both 7 feet. Say it again, Gabe?
Tarzus, he was the All-American. I remember him.
Yeah, I think
Great
so.
call,
I mean, if
Tarzus.
it's something that
Yeah.
Arizona can do, that if it's something that they have a pedigree for, but not really in other places. In mid majors, you usually see guys who, if they transfer out now, they're guards. I think those are the guys who you'll see come up from the mid major to a high level program, or just one of the guys who's leading the country with like 36 points per game, something like that. I'm not saying the big man's dying out. I'm not Shaq. But I think it's hard to have two big in a time where the game is oriented more towards the perimeter.
Yeah,
Well,
like,
there's not a lack of big men in the game right now at that level. When you look at, like, you made me think. When you talk about the multiple big men, Ricky, I was thinking about Purdue. You know, they're playing now. They got Stefanovic and Williams.
yeah.
You know, I don't know if both classified as centers, but they play they play some big lineups.
Well, I was
And-
just going to bring them up. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
I feel like so they have Zach Edey and Trevion Williams. Trevion Williams, Chicago kid, I think, right? He's from East Chicago. In Zach Edey, he's the Yao Ming of the Big Ten. I mean, this guy is like the biggest dude you've ever seen in your life. He's like 7'4", 7'5", but they never play him together, and they like stagger him. Meanwhile, Arizona is just like, screw it. 2 6'11" guys, 7-foot guys, get every offensive rebound, pound the ball inside. It wouldn't work at the NBA level, but that's why like college basketball is cool, because it's just like, in a sense, it's like a more pure version of the game, like a version that like you could see yourself playing in, or like, you know, viewing in a park, or, you know, a gym open run or something. You know, a team that's going 2 centers versus a team that's going 4 guards. You don't get that in the NBA when everyone has been so good. So,
well, Ricky, what do you think about the Big Ten overall? It's been kind of a brutal season. Like, they've been knocking each other off pretty well, like throughout that top 6, 7. And, you know, do you think it's gonna be a nice battle test for a team to maybe make a run, or do you think they're gonna just wear each other out?
yeah, great question. I mean, the last Big Ten team to win the title is MSU in 2001 or whatever. Is that correct? Yeah. So
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, there hasn't been a Big Ten team to win the title in a long time. But I'm going to say the Big Ten rocks this year. It's been so fun to watch the conference. It's loaded with great players. Honestly, it's loaded with NBA guys this year. Like, I feel like Io busting through a little bit is a gem of a second-round pick. Now I'm like, well, why can't EJ Liddell do that next year at Ohio State? Like, a dude who's just really good. He's been a star, but like, he also has the qualities of a good NBA role player. As long as his jumper is good, and it's been good this year, similar to Io, made a big jump his last season in 3-point shooting. So the Big Ten's been awesome this year. So many good players. EJ Liddell's a monster. Keegan Murray at Iowa is going to be a lottery pick. He's super awesome offensively. Defensively, I feel like a little
He's been
slow.
an eye, yeah.
Yeah, not totally sold on him as an NBA guy, but like every time I watch him, he's pretty skilled offensively, and he's like 6'9", 230. He's a big dude. So Murray's been great. Johnny Davis is just a killer. He's the one guy who I'm like, I really don't know what I think about his NBA potential, because he's like not quick and he's not explosive, but he's just like amazing. And I'm like, is this guy going to be like, honestly, I thought the same thing about Jamal Murray back in the day. I'm like, Murray's too slow to kill it in the NBA. And he's totally proven me wrong. You know, he's bona fide on the playoff levels, biggest spotlights, biggest stages. So I wonder, like, you know, could Davis be that type of guy? And then I love watching Jaden Ivey. He's my favorite player to watch in the country. Just that burst is so rare. A really, really fast guy, always cool. That like maintains itself, like being cool over the course of decades. So Ivey's super fun to watch. I love his shot. I like how he has like the coach's son thing, but his mom's the coach. His mom's the coach in Notre Dame women's basketball. He's got like super great athletic genes in the family, and his game is just really fun to watch. So I think the Big Ten's back. Big Ten ball has been great. I got to mention Kofi too. Kofi's been a killer in Illinois. Just incredible 2-year, last 2 years for him. Is a Big Ten team going to win the title? I don't know. Like, what Big Ten team is most likely to win the title is an interesting question. I would have said Purdue, but their defense just stinks. They can't stop anyone. So they're like outside of the top 100 in defense right now. So, and they're number
Oh,
one.
wow.
So it's interesting. And then like all the numbers love Wisconsin. And I look at Wisconsin and I'm like, this is Johnny Davis and like a bunch of dudes who I would play pickup with who suck. Like no one else is that talented. They still got Brad Davison. I'm like, they got no other ballers on this team, but Davis is a killer. He's so good. So yeah, I don't know. Who does anyone here have a strong take on who they think is the Big Ten team most likely to win the title? Is it Illinois? Is it someone else?
I could see Illinois making a Sweet 16 run. I really like the way that they're playing right now. Trent Frazier.
It'd be kind of ironic too if they make a run better than last year's team.
Right.
But they sort of more balanced this year than they were last year. Okay.
Very much so. And the way Kofi's been playing, I think he's really coming into his own as a player. I think going back to school did wonders for him because he was a guy that I think needed to take his game offensively to the next level. And I think he's slowly but surely shown signs of doing that. Ohio State, you know, with EJ Liddell, they've been pretty good as well. Also, they came up with some big wins lately. I think they knocked off Illinois about a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I mean, the Big Ten rather has been very competitive and very deep. I don't know if I see one making a run to that Final Four, but I could see Illinois being a tough out because one thing about them, they're getting after it. And I got to give Brad Underwood credit. He's kind of brought a national buzz and a spotlight back to that program in some ways that they really haven't had since like the Bill Self era. Because, you know, even though Bruce Weber did his job, like he was winning with Bill's players and lead recruits. So it's been kind of cool to watch them this year in Champaign.
Yeah. Ricky, I want to get some thoughts from you on the Bulls because we sort of putting off the Bulls talk, but before we just to wrap up the college talk, you know, what's one or two teams who, you know, we haven't talked about or, you know, yeah, I guess, you know, to sort of give a little bit to the bettors out there or the, you know, people going to put together, you know, brackets or whatever, you know, what's the team or two out there who you can see as a dark horse or a Cinderella possibly?
Yeah. Great question. I'm not like fully prepared to answer who I think the dark horse teams are going to be yet. Actually, I like Arkansas. I'll throw Arkansas out there. So one thing I would say is like in March, you want a awesome guard or just very good guard play. And JD Notte on Arkansas just totally torched Kentucky over the weekend. They also got an awesome center, Jalen Williams, who he reminds me of like a Wendell Carter type. Like he's kind of like a skill guy who's a little undersized, but he's really good. So I enjoy Arkansas. Who else should I put up here? Let's see. I think Ohio State could go on a run. Probably they're, you know, they got this breakout freshman Malachi Branham, who I think is going to be a one and done guy now. He's really come on strong lately, so I could see them. And I do see the argument for Memphis, as Gabe mentioned in the chat. Gabe can give his pitch for him, but I was thinking like since they got DeAndre Williams back, like first of all, DeAndre Williams is like 25 years old and he's playing college basketball. He's awesome. Like, you know, you think of Penny having these like top freshmen with like Bates and with Jalen Duren, but in reality, like I thought this guy at the beginning of this season was going to be their best player, and when he's been in the lineup, I think they've been like pretty good. DeAndre Williams.
Well, Ricky, we was talking a little earlier about Javon Freeman Liberty and a couple people at DePaul. Like, we got to put together a All-American team of 25 and older.
I love it. He's on it.
But go ahead.
And then, I guess, like, you know, just to talk about him, to go out with it, Gonzaga. So my general takeaway is, like, there's always this storyline that this coach or this program can't win the big one. And it exists until they do it, inevitably. And, like, an example of this would be Jay Wright, Villanova. Like, they were getting upset in the first or second weekend, like, every year with teams that were getting top 2 or 3 seeds. But, like, they were just building a great program, and it was probably going to happen. And then it happened, and they won 2 in 3 years, right? And then, like, Tony Bennett in Virginia, very similar thing. And then they had the scarlet letter of losing to the 16 seed, and it's like, oh, my God, how did you lose to a 16 seed? Now they're bringing the same team back. I think DeAndre Hunter didn't play in that loss to UMBC. And then, they had DeAndre Hunter back, but they had Kyle Guy, they had Ty Jerome. It was just like a really good team. It's like, well, I mean, are Tony Bennett teams like truly lacking something, or is it like this is a single elimination tournament? Sometimes it's not your day. You can get got on any given day, really. And they won, the next year, even though they had totally insane comeback to do it. So in the Final Four. So I think I'm rolling Gonzaga this year, but they're not as good as last year. I do like Chet Holmgren. I had to be won over by him, but lately I've been won over. I don't think he's going to be a big scorer in the NBA, but I just think he's like a winning player. And I just sort of like the role he can play is just like a 7-1 guy who can rip threes, who can pass. The thing that stands out to Holmgren to me is like, how Greg Popovich is just saying 0.5 basketball of like, you get 0.5 to pass, shoot, or dribble. And that's how Chet plays. He does not hold the ball. Like Paolo, I think he holds the ball a lot. He has other things going for him. He has a way better frame than Chet does. And the debate between them is 1-2. Like, I think it's a great debate. Jabari Smith is awesome too. I would choose between Paolo and Chet. I've been a Paolo number 1 guy the entire year. Don't know who I'll end with. I do think Chet's coming on strong. So I kind of want to go Gonzaga to win it, just because I feel like those teams that are consistently good, Gonzaga's lost in the national title game twice now. This team is once again possibly the best team in the country. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at heading into the tournament. Does anyone else have a team they know they're going to pick to win it all yet?
Bradley. Bradley about to make it, man. Bradley going to make it out of the tournament. They're going to make it out of the MVC tournament, first of all.
You definitely gonna win any bracket challenge you're in if Bradley.
I'm just saying I don't know if there's gonna be an at-large bid for the MVC this year because like Northern Iowa's been good. No, I'm being serious. Because there's years where they'll get 2 teams in post Wichita State. But Bradley, baby, it's we got that squad. People aren't talking enough about Rink Mast from the Netherlands. Netherlands got plenty of ball players throughout history. And he's about to put up 30-15 over this weekend and get Bradley to the tournament. And they're gonna be the first team to win the whole thing out of the 15 seed. I was gonna say 16, but they're mid-major enough that they won't get a 16 seed. So put it on your calendars.
All the bettors out there, throw down your money on Bradley. Lock. Chris is insuring all.
You won't have to put down much either to get a lock.
Where's my button? I guarantee.
But no, I was gonna say, Gonzaga would be a hell of a story because of their history. But going back to Memphis would probably be the best story because of where they were just a few weeks ago when Penny was cussing out the media. Like, they brought in Imani Bates and all these kids this year. They had to have thought it was like the wire line. It's like you thought it would be one way, but it's the other. Like they had to thought that this season was going to be one thing. It turned into a whole other thing. But now it's turned into something else where they may actually be a competitive team that could make noise in March after this sort of like down period that they had.
They had a tough time taking care of basketball early in the year. That was a team that I was very excited to look forward to watching because of Duran and Bates being this package deal. And all the hype and the hoopla, combined with Penny. And I thought it was well deserved and earned, with the credentials that all 3 of them have. But at the same time, they had a tough time taking care of the ball. In many games, committing like up to 18 to 20 turnovers a night. And I think that's what ended up costing them a lot of games. And you see that a lot with a lot of young teams. Like it takes them time to learn how to win and come together as one, as a unit, cohesively. And they're finally starting to pick it up at the right time. They winning some big games in conference play. And if they can continue that going into, the American tournament and make some noise there and potentially possibly win it where they will secure a bid for themselves, as opposed to being like one of those on the bubble teams, then they could be a team that a lot of people say, hey, watch out for them. Gonzaga, I like Gonzaga, and I think Mark Few is the best coach in college basketball without a national championship on his resume. He's definitely the most accomplished. So at this point, He's done everything in the game, and now it is time to win a national championship. And all the recruits that he's starting to get there, Gonzaga's no longer that mid-major, that they once used to be looked at as the underdog anymore. Like, this is kind of like the new UNLV, if you will, of the West Coast. They just got to win it.
Well, yeah, like I said, we going a little bit long here, so I'm gonna get us straightened with the Bulls stuff here before we sign off soon. But I'm gonna let you go, Ricky. But I just want to, before we let you go, I want to just, like I said, get your thoughts on the team right now. You're just as known for your Bulls coverage as anything else, man. What do you think about the team right now? And is it one thing that we've sort of all gone over is like on the show is like, where do you see them landing by the time the playoffs start? And a lot of the guys have been like 4, 5, 6. What it's like an old game of CeeLo on the East Coast or something. But Ricky, what spot do you think the Bulls are sort of destined to land now? Because they're not showing us much to be confident in regards to their play against the top 3 teams. So maybe they're not a top 4 team as we have hoped.
Yeah, back-to-back losses. It was tough. I mean, they played decently well in the Grizz game, but Morant was just like Superman and willed them to victory. What was disappointing about that game is that Vooch got totally outplayed by Adams. Vooch had been playing pretty good lately, though. I actually didn't see last night's game because anyone who knows me knows I play pickup on Monday nights. If you guys ever want to come, hit me up. We play in Wicker Park. Listeners, not so much, but if you guys want to come, no, I'm joking.
Ricky said, "Don't talk to me in the Uber pool."
I'm like, did I just invite a bunch of people to my pickup round? I should limit it.
It ain't that many, Ricky. Don't worry about it. But
so what I'm more interested in, like, not just like what seed they're gonna get, because honestly, the schedule is really tough coming up. Without Lonzo and Caruso, I could see them dropping in the standings. They're going to need DeRozan to just save him every game. The last 2 games, he's been a little off. I still kind of think, like, you live by DeRozan, you die by DeRozan. So I'm sort of cool with DeRozan just, like, taking a bunch of shots. And I do think that's probably their best chance at offense. To me, the barometer of the team is Vooch. When Vooch plays well, the Bulls usually can win. When he plays poorly, and especially without Lonzo and Caruso, it's like there's no room for error for Vooch to play poorly. But Vooch has been good basically since those guys have been out, since Grayson Allen kneecapped her boy, Caruso. So I'm still feeling good about the Bulls, honestly. And I think I might be alone in this on the fan base, just like based off the chatter I'm seeing. So obviously, the Bulls are not going to be the favorite in a lot of these series. And that's just more what I'm interested in now. Like, who would you take in this matchup, or how would you rank the opponents? Like, if the Bulls play the Heat, they're not going to be the favorite. I would say that series probably 60-40 Heat, but I can see the Bulls taking them. I honestly could. Like, I think they'd have a good chance to win the series. I don't think that the series would be over before it starts, for example. And I didn't see the game yesterday, so I can't really speak on that. But I do know the other couple.
It didn't look that great.
Yeah, they looked bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the Heat are a bad example to use here, but like the.
Well, last week, we had the discussion about who would be the team that you would want them to see last. I think Josh, me, Gabe, and Drew mostly talked about that, and we sort of came to the Nets conclusion. But I think I may have to change that to the Heat now. Like,
they beat the Nets twice, though. They whooped the Nets twice.
Yeah, but post trade and everything. But I'm not that confident in the Nets overall right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to get themselves together in the right way if they have enough time to do that this year. Now, Sixers may be where they want to be right now. Like I said, the Heat haven't really had to do anything. And they're still waiting on Oladipo to come back. I mean, they're tough, man. They're tough.
Sixers look great. The Bulls have never beaten Embiid since Embiid's joined the NBA. That's truly an incredible stat. And yeah, I mean, Embiid just abuses the Bulls. Like the game they played I think it was a February game where him and DeRozan both went off. Sixers won that game. Embiid was incredible. He scored 40 plus. In Harden, I mean, he's looked amazing in these first two games. And my issue with Harden was where is he physically? Right? A lot of people worry about him mentally and stuff. Is he going to be engaged, checked in? I'm just I don't know. He just didn't look as quick as he has in years past. So I wanted to see does Harden still have that burst, that explosiveness? And he's looked like it these first two games. Still, if I'm playing the Sixers, my defense is let James Harden get his, let him dribble 100 times, try to limit the shooters, try to somehow limit Embiid, even though he's totally incredible and can score in any scenario, basically. But yeah, I mean, if the Bulls played the Sixers, I honestly think that might be the scariest matchup. But I don't know. The Bucks are a little diminished now if Brook Lopez doesn't come back. PJ Tucker is gone from there. So I don't know. Giannis is incredible, but if the Bulls could keep that series in the half court instead of in transition, I think they could have a chance against Milwaukee. So yeah, I'm a little bit more interested in what the playoff matchup is going to be than where they're going to finish. But I'd probably agree with you guys. Probably 4, 5. I don't know.
They may want to be in that 4 or 5 spot. If you get Milwaukee in 4 or 5, and then maybe you take your chance with Miami in the second round. Maybe there's still a pathway to the conference finals there.
After this week, the most desirable matchups I see for the Bulls, probably Atlanta and Boston. Boston being higher than Atlanta, just for the simple fact that even though you got Tatum and Brown in the mix, that's a 2-man team. If one of those guys is off or neither one of them is on, you can pretty much rest assured that you're going to take care of business as long as you play defense and keep guys in place.
Only reason I'm going to push back on that is because with that trade they made for Derek White, bro, they have –
that's a good point.
Every one of that closing line that they could potentially put on the floor. When you look at the Bulls' the strengths, when you talk about Levine and DeRozan having 2 guys that can take and make tough shots. Brooklyn's got 4 guys that can cover. They can at least play, make it tough for those 2 guys. So that's my only pushback on Boston. Plus, to your point, they've been playing some excellent basketball lately. So I don't know, man. It's just there's no escaping it, man. It's tough matchups, wherever you land. That's just the way the Eastern Conference is right now. But I still, as much as I want to say, or as much as I don't want to be a homer, and I want to say, man, I think that maybe the Bulls are, whatever you want to say, a year ahead, or maybe a superstar away, or whatever, power forward away. I keep coming back to the fact that they have 2 guys that can get you buckets late in games, and for the most part in the playoffs, it comes down to that. And not only can DeRozan and Levine get you buckets, they can also get to the free throw line, especially DeRozan. So, I keep going back and forth in my mind.
And they almost got that game Saturday. If DeRozan has if DeRozan has a half, DeRozan scored 30 on Saturday, but he didn't have a good game. If he has a good game, they beat Memphis on Saturday.
See, I just wonder if, and I know Donovan was asked this question, I wonder if he tried that 2 big lineup. You guys alluded to it in basketball earlier with Arizona, but if he would have stayed Thompson a little bit longer and put Vooch on the court with him to battle Jaren Jackson Jr. and Adams, maybe they would have came up with some of those late game loose balls, offensive rebounds, because that's been a bugaboo too. As much as we talk about the Bulls' struggles without Caruso and Ball, they've played okay in spots, but they just haven't been able to secure the rebound. And then it just, sucks the life out of you. And as we saw on Saturday, pretty much cost them that game.
Yeah, it would have been nice if
Trish should have been out there. Ain't no excuse for that. I had a major problem with that because you rally back in a ball game with him out there. Defensively, you were getting stops. He was doing what he's assigned to do. I mean, Trish done played at the highest level in the finals. And done been a menace on the boards. That's what you brought him here for. At some point, you got to play matchups. And I don't think it was Vooch night on Saturday. It just wasn't. He was getting dominated, like Ricky said, by Steven Adams, who is a brute and dominates a lot of opposing bigs on other teams, and Jaren Jackson himself, they didn't even do a lot of talking. That changed in that fourth quarter. If they'd have played like that all game, it would have been a different game, even if DeRozan was cold.
Yeah. And then I just think, like, I totally agree. I would have played Tristan over Vooch, but, like, also Tristan just came to the team. Vooch has been your guy. You're riding with him all year. Vooch was getting his ass kicked, though, and Vooch's play is pretty wide spectrum of outcomes. Like, he has bad games. He also has awesome games. And, yeah, I just come back to the idea that Vooch is the barometer of the team. Would like to see more Tristan. Been really impressed with what he's provided. Don't think they should play him at the same time, only because, like, they really need this floor cleared for DeRozan shooting mid-range shots. And that's probably the best way to do it, is to put three-point threats on the floor. But, yeah, I don't know. I echo Drew's sentiments 100% in terms of, like, I also don't want to seem like a homer, but I kind of think the Bulls could have a run in them because of what Drew said. Game slows down in the playoffs. I think DeRozan is poised for a huge playoff run, and he's never done that in his career. He's sort of been defined by his playoff failings in terms of his national narrative to this point. I think he's primed for a big playoff run. I think Zach, as long as the knee is feeling fine, that's one of my big questions about the Bulls right now. Like, how healthy is LaVine? Is LaVine going to be 100%? They need him to go on a run like Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker. Those guys have all done the last, like, 3 years, 4 years. But, I mean, maybe it's just, like, my belief in Lonzo and Caruso to just, like, change everything.
Yeah. You got to project things with them involved. Like, it was so great to see Caruso active in the practice before the Miami game. P. Will was active as well. No cast anything on either of them. They were practicing regularly. So my thinking, has always been like, we got to see what this team is like with at least two of those guys on the court, back on the court. Until then, it's hard to completely gauge them in the way that you want.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure those guys haven't played a full game together since, like, December 20th or something like that. Technically, I think they played another game, but Caruso left, like, after 3 minutes or so. I think that was
right.
He had a hamstring issue, so it's been a while. Never seen this team in full strength because Pat got hurt early on. Kobe White was hurt with the first month and a half of the season. So I just want this team to get healthy so we can see what exactly is here. See guys that are pushed into the role they were supposed to be playing all along. It'll be interesting to see if Donovan keeps Green in the starting lineup the whole way through, if he starts playing matchups, if he ever tries Patrick Williams at the small ball 5. So it's still a lot of interesting storylines to be had here for sure. And Ricky, I know you mentioned DeRozan and you mentioned Vucevic. You did not mention LaVine in terms of just who kind of sets the team, the bar for the team. Was that because you know what you're going to get from LaVine, or is it because you're not sure how he might perform in the playoffs?
Well, I'm worried about his injury.
Okay.
I mean, he got the cortisone shot, but, like, they basically just shot him up. Like, the injury is still an injury, but, like, he's going to play through it, and he's not going to feel it because we put a bunch of drugs in. So, like, how is that going to work in the playoffs? I'm just interested about that. I think LaVine's awesome. I think LaVine deserves so much credit for this team's success because, listen, he's in a contract year. He just put up these big-time scoring numbers last year, and he willingly took a step back for the team. He, like, sacrificed personally so the team could benefit, even in, like, late game scenarios, like ceding the ball to DeMar. I feel like he's not getting enough credit for how good of a teammate he's been. And to go a step beyond that, just like his skill set is so scalable. Like, for example, Jimmy Butler he's probably a better player than Zach in a vacuum, but Jimmy Butler and DeRozan just wouldn't work because no one could stretch the floor. There'd be two guys looking for their own offense. And Zach, it's like you could pair him next to anyone. That's why he's so good. You could use him in so many different, Like he'd be great next to LeBron. He'd be great next to Luka. He'd be great next to Harden. He'd be great next to Chris Paul. He'd be great next to Jokic. He's like good next or Giannis. He's good next to anyone because he can play on or off the ball. He has awesome 3-point shooting ability. And yeah, he's got defensive limitations. You don't want him to be like your full-time decision maker on offense, I would say. But is your second best player, or is your like your quote unquote number 2 on the Bulls? I'd say him and DeMar are like 1A, 1B. But really, DeMar has sort of risen to be the guy who they trust at the end of games over Zach in a lot of instances. But they help each other because Zach spaces the floor so well, plays so well off the ball. So I think Zach deserves a lot of credit. I just hope he's healthy.
That's a great point.
All right, guys, we gonna wrap up. Like I said, we went a little long here. I didn't know the whole crew was gonna be in here, plus Ricky, but I'm really happy how things went. This is a nice show. We all got a little bit in and everything, and we went over all the things I wanted to go over pretty much. Except, I wanted to go over the ranking of the 75th anniversary team. We could hold that off, but. That's
a whole episode, man. I want to listen to that episode.
Yeah, yeah. We'll try to get into that soon, but I definitely want to get into Ja Morant before we leave because that was the whole thing today, and when the media cycle today, basketball cycle, like he comes off the 46-point performance here in Chicago with a 50 piece on Monday, and a couple of amazing highlights. And it's amazing to me because on Friday, we was all wrapped up with DeRozan in the street, and Stephen A comes on and says nobody should be ahead of DeRozan in the MVP. But today, like it's all about Durant. Like, but that's how the MVP has been all year. Like it's been hopscotch. 1 minute is Embiid, 1 minute is Joker. It's been going back and forth. But how impressed are we with Ja at this moment? And what do you think is his staying power? And I kind of want to go into. We don't have enough time for this, but the Derrick Rose comparison stuff has been unnerving me too. But now we're about to say that for another show as well. But for now, just what y'all think about the way Ja has emerged, and is he the leader right now in the clubhouse for MVP?
No, he's not the leader, but he's definitely a top 3. He's a top 3 candidate now, and he surpassed Steph based on the way in which he's played as of late and what he's done in Memphis. And I think you have to consider him as a front runner for the MVP award going into next season, just based off his play right now. There's nobody in the league that can stop him getting to the rim right now. He's getting it too easily, and he's gonna become a nightmare for a lot of scouts and video guys going into this summer because they have no answer towards stopping him and resistance to the rim. And when he's able to get to the paint that easily and do majority of his damage there, and he's hitting the 3 ball, which he showed the other night when the Bulls wanted to go under screens and whatnot, you pretty much toast at this point. The league is in his hands. Among all the point guards, what him and Trey are doing right now amongst the 25 and under guards, it's been real fun to watch, but he's definitely up there. If I had to pick today, Joel is still my MVP, and I would put DeRozan second, and I would put Ja third. But everybody should expect more 50 balls coming from Ja. I think he got at least 1 or 2 more left in him if he keep playing the way that he's been playing over the last couple of weeks.
Okay. Hey, you might as well jump in quick.
He's just so much fun to watch. An idiot. I wasn't super high on him in the draft. I'm like, I don't know. He's kind of skinny. I don't really trust the shot. Terrible. I feel so bad about that miss. I'm like, oh, I'm so dumb. How could I miss that? He just has the it factor, It's like he's so athletic, so quick, and he's also like super tough, and he's creative, and he doesn't back down from any challenges. And his passing vision is like really elite. I would say he's one of the best passers in the league. The shot is improved. He scores in the second level. And it's so funny, like when that draft was going down, I was covering that draft, and so much of the discussion was like, if you even question the fact that Zion Williamson shouldn't go number one, you're canceled. You're like,
you can never trust the discussion. You can never trust the draft discussion like that.
It's a no-brainer. Like, of course you would take Calvin. I'm still super high on Zion. I love Zion. I hope he gets healthy. Players have missed seasons with a broken foot before, like Michael Jordan in his second season or whatever. So, but Ja's awesome. It's just been so much fun to watch. I think the D-Rose comparisons, I think they're apt. They play similarly. They're both just thrilling players to watch. So, I love the creativity. I love the mindset.
Well, Ricky, you know, the only thing with me is we got 16-year-olds now. Like, Derrick Rose ain't nothing. You know. Yeah, why he even win the MVP? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was cool.
That's a compliment. That's an insult to the rest of us. Yeah, I don't know. Like, my dad probably would have said the same thing about, Isaiah or someone before my time. So that's the game. The game improves the game. How about this? Like, could Ja Morant exist without Prime D-Rose? Prime D-Rose sort of like paved the way for how a point guard like Ja Morant can succeed in the NBA. That's game fair. Builds on the game, That's what it's all about. That's why I love AI. AI has so much love for everyone. He just seems like he's in a much better place than some of these former players who are just hating all the time. Man. AI is just like, yeah, this guy rocks. Love him. Like he's just like showing love to all the young guys. And I just think the game improves the game over time.
And I'm gonna mention that right quick. I had the tweet today of Ja. He put Ja's jersey over his MVP trophy. Yeah. So it's like that. I love AI too. I love that about him. But sometimes it's like the old cat who come around the block like, oh, you got it, young, and he be a little bit too friendly. Like I love AI comes from a good place. Y'all know that. So.
Yeah, low key, just to talk about the team real quick. They're a game behind Golden State for that second seed, and they have according to Tankathon, they have the second easiest schedule moving forward. So there's a good chance they sneak into that. Not even sneak, they get into that second spot, and they're gonna make life very difficult for whoever they face. One thing that might hurt Morant's MVP case is that the team went 12-2, or has been 12-2 without him in the lineup this year. Take that for whatever you want, but. He has been awesome. There's no doubt about it.
That depends on if anybody ever actually agrees on the definition of most valuable player, though.
We won't.
I gotta hear this, man.
There's no definition of it. Everybody just loves to argue about it. That's why
it's a narrative war.
Yeah, I love hate when it comes around.
Yeah, right, Gabe. It's a narrative war.
It's the most valuable. It's the most valuable to your team. No, it's the most valuable to the league. No, it's the best player on the team who's done the best. And I'm like, y'all don't know. Y'all don't actually know. That we have all these stats for basketball now, and we still can't figure it out. Like that's the craziest part. I will say this. The one thing I want to say is Ja Morant is super cold. I love the fact that he came out of Murray State and is doing this because even in the NBA, except for the guys who came out of Europe, and most of those guys were at top European clubs before they came over. You don't see too many guys, I think, that break through from non like Power 5 conferences. Steph Curry was overlooked because he was small, but I just don't think there's a lot of guys from that. That said, we only have maybe 2 or 3 more years of watching Steven Adams throw baseball passes to a leak out Ja Morant, and I want y'all to treasure those times because that's one of the best duos in the league. It's really good.
I'm a Steven Adams stan.
I swear, if there's one NBA player that I want to interview, it's him. It's him.
That dude is awesome for sure.
Drew, I can see you picturing yourself as Steven Adams on some pickup games. Like, I'm gonna be Steven in this game. Like,
no, that's Aquaman, man. I'm not setting no screens like that. I'm too old.
Exactly. I think this is a good thing for the NBA, though. Especially when you talk about these small market teams, especially the past couple of years. You're talking about how Giannis took over the reins and elevated, really capitalized on his commitment to Milwaukee and brought them a title. Ja Morant himself elevated the Memphis Grizzlies to what they used to be, especially during the Bad Boy Grizzly era with Tony Allen and those guys, man. I mean, it's an exciting sight to see and a good way to balance out the league when you talk about the overall competitiveness of the game. So it's definitely a good spot. The NBA is in a good spot right now if things continue the way that they're going with, especially those two staying put in those franchises as they continue to elevate them into elite status.
Yeah, definitely. Fellas, thanks, man. I really appreciate y'all. This was a nice run, man. This was a busy run, but it was a nice one. I'm gonna get us all off. Ricky, I'll let you see the sec. I'm gonna check the second half of that Purdue Wisconsin game as well. But let people know how to check up with you and your work online.
You can find all my work at sbnation.com. I'm going to be doing a lot of college, like March Madness stuff, a lot of playoff stuff, and a lot of draft stuff. So find it all there.
Definitely.
And I got a Bulls podcast, Cash Considerations. We should get you guys on. Meaning to do that.
Yes.
Please do. Drew and Josh has a podcast that he's had almost all of us on, I think, at this point. So let me say, I'm giving you a chance to shout out your podcast, Josh. Come on.
I mean, at the end of the day, speaking nothing but facts. Ricky's been on it. I'm working on you, Gabe. I am working on you. But everybody for sure has been on the In the Scope with the one and only Joshua M. Hicks. Come on now. Like, that's a given.
Yes, sir.
You too, Chris. We go way back, though, with the Sky. We was doing the original Sky stuff. We was doing that, that was my independent form of the In the Scope with you. But I definitely got to get you back on, too. Everybody is going to be on the In the Scope platform with the one and only Joshua M. Hicks coming up soon. Like, it's going to happen. So definitely be on the lookout for all of that as we continue to move forward into the NBA season and preparation for more afterwards, especially with the WNBA. So we got a lot coming your way very, very, very soon.
Yeah. Chris, you got a Skyhook podcast?
Yeah, the Skyhook's going to be coming out again soon. James and I have been doing a lot more this off season. We're talking about putting up a Patreon, so look out for that. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming out from the Skyhook, especially if the MLB stays locked out. It'll be the one and only place for sports in the summer, and the Chicago Sky got to defend that title. So check it out at the Skyhook Pod on Twitter. Also, What's Good Radio. I'm taking a bit of a break now, but I'm going to be back coming up in the next couple of weeks, putting out episodes, just talking to people about what carries them each day, where they find the good in their lives and what they do.
And if you want to hear somebody badmouth Manfred, Chris Penn is a good follow for that. So yeah, you and Marcus Stroman are both firmly in the anti-Rob.
Marcus,
I feel your
Marcus,
pain.
Come on the podcast. Come on the podcast, man. We'll debate how the league tried to not let you wear your do-rag. That won't even be a debate. We'll just talk shit about it.
Right. Drew, Gabe, what's going on with y'all, man? Before we head out.
Just follow me at what Gabe said on Twitter. I'll be on there all the time talking ball. Don't have really much on the writing scene. I haven't written in a minute, but I will be getting back into that space pretty soon. We'll be starting to do some things as the year goes along. I'll keep everybody posted on that.
Amen. You can follow me at Look What Drew Did. Kind of been tweeting more than writing, but trying to find the balance here and there. But always talking about Bulls.
Just getting shout outs from Adam and me on the broadcast. So humble.
I missed it live, man. I hated it, man. I hate that.
Crazy.
Drew, man.
Yeah, he's
Drew gonna get his straight off the tweets, man. He ain't got to go more than 140 characters no more. He got to do none of that nature no more.
Drew for the host of the pre and post game show just because I have a latent beef with Jason.
But yeah, that's true, that man. And me, man. Kyle means matters. Personal, WARR Media, for business, and we keeping it rolling, man. As always, NBC Sports Chicago support that as well. I'm still working on my binds on there, but you may Drew recognized something I wrote there, so that's why that's my man, because he recognized it straight off the wordplay.
I heard, man. I'm telling you, I'm reading it like Kyle wrote this, man. I already knew. I didn't have to see the byline. I'm already knowing, man.
Yeah, love.
Your voice is your voice, man.
I appreciate that. But yeah, that's it, man. We doing it, man. Keep up with us, man. We go keep rolling with this bull stuff and college or whatever, man. We in WNBA, we got all for you. That's why, we are the best basketball podcast you ain't talking about yet. So let's change that real soon. Running with WARR. We still running. We're gonna keep it going. Peace in the Ukraine. And in the meantime, keep bouncing.